you've got to create more chances, because Bayer Leverkusen, while they haven't had a lot of the ball, they've been the team that's been most dangerous.
So at half-time, it is City 0, Bayer Leverkusen 1. Well, let's go back to the studio. Kel, what do you make of that?
Thanks to Alistair Mann on commentary. Thank you to you for joining us. It's half-time here at the Etihad Stadium. Not the result any of us Manchester City fans wanted to see or maybe expected. It's Manchester City 0, Bayer Leverkusen 1. Andy and Stephen with me in the studio. I'm going to pick up Alistair Mann's point, Andy. What is your assessment of those 45 minutes? Because really, being honest, City haven't really been in the game.
No, they haven't, but I wouldn't say that, Leverkusen run all over us or dominated. I mean, you're looking at 60% to 40% possession.
Yep.
Equal number of shots. We've had more corners than them. So it's been an evenly balanced game. A bit flat, really, not a little bit of energy. It's been a bit too slow at times. And, but there's been a couple of opportunities, for both teams. And, they've taken theirs and they're 1-0 up. And probably, a reflection of the game, it could have been 1-0 either way.
Yeah. It could have been 1-0 either way. We're going to get into the key moments of the game. Stephen, there's been a lot of changes, as we know, and I don't want the conversation to be around about the 10 changes, but were you hoping to maybe see a little bit more from the 11 that started today?
It's the sort of double-edged sword when you make that many changes, because naturally, you get the optimism of seeing what these players can produce. But at the same time, most of these haven't played a lot of football. So the chemistry won't be there, the rhythm won't be there, and they are still playing their way into fitness. So you sort of get, when you see him misplace a pass, you think, well, he's 8-0, for example. I'm not naming him in particular making a pass, but I'm saying an example of a guy who's barely played any football recently, likewise Marmoush from Manchester City and so on. So I think you hope for more, but also you have to sort of understand that it's not easy just to play with a bunch of players who are probably lacking match fitness and just be immediately at your best. You have to find your rhythm and you have to ease your way into it. Of course, they demand the highest expectations of themselves, and Guardiola does too, so they'll want to be better than they did in that first half. But I think there's an element of, as much as it's fun to see so many changes, you also have to accept a little bit. There's a give and take element where they aren't fully sharp yet. You can see signs of promise there, but to me, that first half was just a story of maybes. They were so close, so often to making that final pass, or just a little bit too slow in decision making.
And we're coming up against a Bayer Leverkusen team, as we spoke about before the game, Andy, who are in form, especially since their new manager has come into the fray. They also had to win, and they have looked like a team that have found their structure at the back very, very well. But when they've come at us and played with intensity and energy, and that's where the goal came from as well.
Yeah, I think it's easy to play against City if you're going to drop into a deep block. I think obviously then you're looking for a stray pass, and then you got the turnover of possession, the transition very, very quick. And we had a warning before where there was a great block from Aït-Nouri that stopped. I think Trafford would have probably saved it, but it was that turnover and then the counter coming in the wide areas where we do tend to get hurt, never through the middle. But I think the manager's happy with trying to defend that wide areas, and and ultimately that's where the goals come from. Oscar Bob has caused them many problems going that way. They've doubled up, but going the other way, we have to track that run all the way in, and without being able to see the build-up of play just before it, maybe 2 or 3 phases, we're not sure how Oscar Bob has got dragged into the middle of the pitch and then had to look over his shoulder as the shot's getting off. Kuznetsov can't get close enough to stop the shot from a deflection, and then it goes through 2 legs and it's a goal. But very small margins. Yeah. This is not a team that ran all over us. It's very evenly balanced, and as Steve said, the rhythm's not there quite right. Players aren't familiar, but there's been enough opportunities to know that as the game goes on, we will create 4, 5, 6 good opportunities in the second half.
That goal scorer as well was someone who we did highlight, Grimaldo. And I mean, for me, he's wearing the captain's armband as well. Great first half performance. He's popped up all over, and he was the scorer of that goal as well. But you can really see why he's been in such devastating form this season. Yeah,
he's a cracking player. He probably would have traded with Barcelona as well. He played with Guardiola, because he was at Barca when Pep was there. Fantastic player. Obviously, what is 8 goals this season now from left back essentially. Really smart. Struck the ball really sweetly. And look, a couple of our players have had chances of a very similar nature and just sort of scuffed the ball wide, and that's conviction, that's confidence and form. And he is, he's playing with an insane amount of confidence right now where our players aren't, to the same extent. A cracking player and one that we just can't let get in that position. It's easier said than done, of course. And as Andy said, that goal, it's not just from someone's got to be tracking that. It comes from many stages of play beforehand. And the main issue is, they're getting so much space out wide so quickly. Grimaldo, he's the danger man, the captain, and a quality goal from a quality footballer.
Yeah, 8 goals from now this season makes him Bayer Leverkusen's top scorer. Before we hear from our commentary team for their half-time reaction, there weren't many chances we could pull out from Manchester City in that half. There was a save from a corner at the start. As you say, maybe some half chances. Reinders unlucky not there. Right at the end of the first half, slight mistake. He was unfortunate not to pull on the back.
Yeah, it was their own making, Leverkusen. They were sloppy in possession of the ball and gave it away. And then I think Reinders has done everything right. But I think the more touches you take, then everything's going to close in. And there's 3 or 4 players. There's no real, you're looking for hopefully a couple of megs like how fortunate they were to get the shot off and go through 2 players' legs. You need that kind of luck because there's 4 or 5 bodies there. And ultimately the keeper makes a save. But, from the corner, it was very easy for Ake to get round the back post, and then the keeper pulls off a good save from that. And apart from that, nothing really in it. And I'm not so sure about him being a left back. It's a left wing back.
Yeah.
In possession of the ball, he's their highest player.
Yeah.
On the left hand side of the pitch, so it's not a left back. We're not thinking we got some sort of
no.
It's an out and out left
wing back. He is indeed. Right, let's hear from Steve and Alistair Mann. They've been on your commentary team. They're at the Etihad Stadium. Here's what they made of the first 45 minutes.
Yeah, thanks, Kel. Myself and Steve commentating on the first half. And Steve, what's sort of really disappointed you about that first half?
It just feels as though there's been that kind of lack of spark, lack of intent. Yes, they've had a lot of the ball, but really, apart from the Ake chance and the Reinders one just at the end where the goalkeeper pulls the save off, they haven't really created anything. As I said, the big chance at the end, that wasn't the creation of City. It was their mistake that the lad slips over in the middle of the park. So I think the manager will be disappointed in some way. I mean, pleased the fact that how much ball they've had, but disappointed the fact that the lack of chances they've created.
Do you feel that City's rhythm has not been there, perhaps because of 10 players who weren't playing at the weekend?
I mean, yeah, you could say that. I mean, people would sort of say, well, the good players, they should be able to come in, but there's a big difference as well. Yes, they are good players, but there's a big difference training week in, week out to playing. And not only playing, but playing against, a team in the Champions League. Not just the Premier League, the Champions League. So the levels are higher. I mean, as I said, I thought the first few minutes, City were on top, and you thought this could be, a decent game where City would dominate. But they just steadily grew into it, and they were always going to be a threat on the counter-attack, and that was proven as well when they got the goal.
We always look for positives. What is the positive for you?
As I said, they're keeping the ball quite well. But I suppose that's really, for me, the only positive. I don't want to be too critical, but they look dangerous, and at times they've looked comfortable. And at times they're passing the ball out from the back and then getting all the way through to the edge of City's box when there's not really been anything laid on them, not like a glove put on them, a little, that kind of thing. So the manager will be, as I said, pleased with the fact of some of the performances, but at the same time, yes, they've had possession, but it always comes down to where's our chances, because if you're not going to create chances, you're not going to score a goal.
Do you anticipate changes?
I think ultimately there will be. I don't know whether he'll make them straight away. He might be saying to the players at half time, listen, some of you have got 10-15 minutes, and if nothing changes, I will be making changes. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the second half. Will we see a real kind of step up in the intensity of the players? And then I think we'll see from there.
The thoughts there of Steve Howie, myself and Steve will bring you second half commentary, so if you've not already done so, download the app. Back to you, Kel.
And back to the Champions League table as it currently stands. So obviously City currently losing. That puts us on 10 points, but still in the top 8. Bayer Leverkusen, who were in and around that 22nd, 23rd mark, you can see why these 3 points are so important to them. Straight away bumps them up into the kind of 14th position, 8 points. Only 1 point behind Liverpool there, of course, with a game to play. As you said, Andy, still so much that can change and move, and there's still so many games to play as well. It's important to point.
Yeah, and we're looking at that. When the second half goes our way, we go top of the league. Top of the the standings. It's as simple as that. It's in our hands, and there's 45 minutes, and we just talked about the strength of the bench, and the options to make that. Pep's not somebody who makes, changes at half-time very often, unless it's down to, perhaps an injury or whatever. I don't see him make 2 or 3 changes. He normally waits to around 60 minutes and then tries to give players half an hour. But, I think if things don't start bright, I expect to see a couple of changes pretty quick.
And I don't know if there's going to be change, but he cuts Claudio Echeverri to Manchester City fans, a name and person we're very familiar, was with the squad last season, young Argentinian that we signed. Obviously made that cameo appearance, was it in the League Cup final, I think?
FA Cup final,
sorry, Stephen. Quite an interesting one. Obviously went there on loan to try and get game time. Ten Hag went, and it seems he's been a little bit out of favour. Obviously it's hard to know what the right call is, but it's not probably quite panned out how he would have hoped so far. You wonder if he might come on a little bit later on in the second half.
Football's a romantic game. It loves a narrative, doesn't it? And look, Echeverri, Guardiola said something about, he's obviously needs to speak to his agent about his future and so on. But I think City were hoping for a lot more from this guy who's incredibly highly rated. He was excellent for Argentina under 20s before, he joined City and so on, and left a really good impression on Guardiola. But this loan so far has been poor. But he has started against PSG and Bayern, so there's obviously talent there that they see at Leverkusen. And it takes a brave manager to sort of ignore the what if angle, I'd be tempted as a manager to think, well, what if Echeverri comes on and see what he can do against his host club, and I wouldn't be surprised at all, because it's just tempting. It's just tempting, isn't it? And I sort of don't want to see it as a City fan, because I'm not superstitious as such, but I'd be like, oh, Echeverri's coming on. He's barely played this season. He's scoring a second.
Yeah.
You don't want to see that as a City fan, do you? So
no, we don't want to see that. So fingers crossed we don't. What we do want to see, though, Andy, is a reaction, and somehow to get the win. Your prediction, sorry, Stephen's now off. Yours still stands, Andy, 3-1. But what do you want to see from City in this second half?
Just move the ball a bit quicker, and I'd like to see, obviously, to really expose the wing-backs in one-on-one situations. We need to hit more diagonal balls, in their 30, 40-yard passes that take out their left-sided midfielder and stops doubling up, because I do think that Bob and Savino have the beating in one-on-ones. Is there changes?
Yeah, O'Reilly's coming on. I saw Foden and O'Reilly warming up at half-time, but O'Reilly's already stripped off.
And we did see as well that it looked like, Aitner did go down under a challenge, so you wonder, you hope that kind of, because obviously he's just coming back from injury, but it does seem that Nico O'Reilly is to come on. Do you know what, we'll hand over there to our Alistair man. He can chat us through any more changes. We'll be back at full time, hopefully talking about a Manchester City win. Come on, City.
And
Thank you, Kel. City players just making their way up the tunnel. Doesn't look as though there's been any changes. No, there hasn't. Oh, yes, there is. I can see Doku and O'Reilly and Foden. So there's 3 changes. They were the last 3 players who emerged down the tunnel. O'Reilly, Doku and Foden. So there you go. Pep Guardiola has seen enough, and he does want to change things. So Ryan Aitner is the first player to make way. Nico O'Reilly